G'day and welcome back to episode 2 of the Make It Make Sense YouTube channel / not podcast. Today we're going to dive into the list that vanished of the names that somehow disappeared once the blowtorch got held to Brereton and all of his cohort. It was also good to get some feedback from you guys in the DMs and in the comments section of the channel. Obviously, I'm not a polished public speaker, nor am I part of the officer class. So you're going to get the raw version of what it's like for guys at my level and how we interpret and translate that information going forward to you. Hopefully it's not too raw and it's understandable. I've been known to eat crayons in the past, but that's a whole different story. So I appreciate the support so far. I don't really have a plan about where this is going to go or how long it's going to go for with respect to the channels and the social media. But the information that I have is researched at the highest level. Take away from that what you will. And it is processed through an algorithm that allows me to structure it correctly so I can speak to it in a coherent manner. And it is on a teleprompter, just so there's some people out there that got their panties in a twist about me reading off it. But I would like to meet somebody that was intelligent enough and articulate enough to digest and have this kind of information on recall at a moment's notice. And my excuse for the teleprompter, and well, I'm not giving an excuse because I don't really give a rat's what people think, but the reason behind why I use that is because the information is too important to me and my mates for me to mess it up and or give it the incorrect value that it is required to pass on these messages. So for all you pansies out there and the other lot, that's why I use a prompter. You'll be getting a lot more freestyle stuff from me soon. However, as I mentioned, I've only been doing this social media stuff at the beginning of this year, so obviously it's going to be more and more polished as we go. But enough about that. On to the details that we are discussing today, which was the names of the people that had mental health that was bypassed and told that they weren't worthy by the Brereton investigation. Let's go. In episode 1, we heard how the Brereton Inquiry process left some veterans more traumatised than the war itself. Today we look at what happened when the Royal Commission into Defence Veteran Suicide tried to find out just how bad the fallout was. They asked the IGADF for a list. What they got back was so sensitive it had to be destroyed. According to the Attorney General's Department, Freedom of Information Disclosure Log, FOI 25-303-IR, assessed 25 August 2025. The Royal Commission issued a formal notice to give information NTG-IGD-003 on 30th of August 2022 to the Inspector General of the Australian Defence Force. Now, just a quick cut on those dashes and numbers. You will need to go away and research them yourself. I'm not going to try and digest and regurgitate that to you guys. It's all available. You just need to type it in and check it all out like I did. It required the IGADF to provide information on the 423 witnesses referred to in paragraph 54 of the Brereton Report, Introduction and Executive Summary. Specifically, as follows. Names of those serving or former ADF members interviewed during the Brereton Inquiry. For each, whether serving or former, and manner of discharge, e.g. medically discharged. To the extent known, whether deceased, including by suicide or suspected suicide, and whether they had attempted suicide. This was the Royal Commission doing its job, trying to understand the downstream mental health and suicide impacts on the very people who went through the Brereton process. The response was handled under the Document Management Protocol, electronic or hard copy. Later, a Disposal of Records Authorisation, OBJ 2024/7, authorised 21st of June 2024, was issued for the IGADF response. It was determined no longer in business use. It was exempt under Section 33 of the Archives Act because disclosure could endanger life or physical safety. It had been stored on security paper in a secure safe, and it was authorised for destruction. Now, I'm going to cut from script here for a second. So, layman's wise, if they'd asked for this information and then they had been receiving the information and then they took that information and locked it away and then they decided that it was too damaging for defence / the investigation that was being carried out, such it was destroyed, I'm not sure if that's going to play well for the average Australian. Let me know what you think. They told the Royal Commission the information was so sensitive that lives were in danger, hard copy only. Then it was destroyed. Could it have been identified? Of course it could. Statistical data on mental health outcomes and suicide attempts among a specific cohort of interviewed witnesses doesn't require naming every individual in a way that endangers lives, but that's not what happened. Okay, another sidebar for me. I have personal and first-hand experience with suicide. I also know that it's common knowledge that DVA does not keep records publicly if they do at all. I've had quite a number of my mates kill themselves on return from Australia, citing that they weren't looked after. They were cut off from their cohort. They basically felt like they'd fallen through the cracks. They were discharged under extenuating circumstances and or not really given a fair shake. So yeah, this whole thing about not having statistics and not being accounted for is a total crock of shit. You can even go back to the Zero Limits podcast, episode 249 with Matty Morris. I actually talk about a few of the guys that I worked with who came through my selection in 2007, who were soldiers in Alpha Company, Bravo Company, and Charlie Company later on, that ended their own life, took their own life, or by way of coming home were self-medicating themselves to the point where they had heart failure and a whole myriad of different things. Guys that were living really, really close to the edge, having car accidents and stuff like that. So this whole complicit behaviour that the government is showing us is a total line of bull. Anyway, back to it. So this looks like the evidence of the human cost was buried. The same institutions that love to virtue signal about veteran suicide and mental health make sure the data linking their own inquiry process to that harm disappeared. And I've been talking about him quite a bit. Heston Russell and others describing being broken by the interviews. The Royal Commission wanted the numbers. The response was destroyed under safety exemptions. Now, props to Hesto. He's one of the most articulate and professional men I have ever met or known. Didn't work with him directly due to just different rotations and different companies. However, I haven't met a person yet who has been able to be a conduit between so many different levels of special forces operators from top to bottom. His ability to harness the English language and deliver it in such a high level of information that guys on the ground can understand and completely take away what he's speaking about. I haven't met somebody that has been able to do that at this high level. Ask yourself, who was really being protected here? And while this was happening, the man at the top of the IGADF, James Gaynor, shit name, was busy briefing the CDF about complaints regarding the conduct of the Brereton Inquiry itself. That sounds like housekeeping to me, James. So that brings me to the end of episode 2 into this investigation into the Brereton Inquiry into veteran suicide. We're going to move on to the hypocrisy of the same people that are prosecuting against alleged war crimes in the next couple. So I strongly endorse you to follow along and listen. I really appreciate everyone getting behind me, even on the small level, with your donations through the Buy Me a Coffee, even just subscribing to my Instagram channel, and stuff like that. Every comment helps. All your support, it doesn't go or fall on deaf ears. So I really appreciate it. As I mentioned before, I've only been doing this for a couple of months since the start of the year. I was watching like 6-7 months now. So the turnout has been really great. I hope the information is landing well, and I'm always open to critique. So please let me know in the comments. Please like, share, and subscribe if you're finding this stuff important. Your feedback is always valuable to me. I'd also like to point out too, obviously you guys have probably already seen it, but I'm no internet guru. I'm no genius at clipping visuals or running clips together at an extremely high level. So I really appreciate you guys copping the raw dog and just appreciating it for what it is. Someone told me recently that it's about the information. It's not so much about my social media skills. So hat tip to that person. Also, I want to say that a good friend of mine, Andy White, his book has been released today. I want you to check that out. It is called Outside the Wire by Andrew White, or Andy White as he goes by. Get behind him. He is an incredible bloke. Me and him have similar personality traits. We're probably the same level of abrasiveness to people that know us. However, we both have hearts that are true, and the reason why we speak to what we speak to is because we care. So props to you, Andy. Hat tip, mate. All the best. Good luck with the book. And also you can check them out at Pillars for Pilgrims. They are doing great work for emergency services, veterans, Five Eyes community. They're really getting behind a lot of people that are in need. And what they do well is they're not led by bureaucrats. They're actually led by two ex-Special Forces operators of the highest level, one being Adam Slott and the other being Andy White himself. So go on. I'll put their link down in the bio, in the description. Check them out. That's Pillars for Pilgrims. Two great blokes doing great things for great people. Thanks. So in true Make It Make Sense form, I'm going to sign off. Follow for more of the truth they won't tell you on the mainstream media. Share this with the people that you care about. The fight continues. Make it make sense.
Walls are shaking, ground is cold. Every secret will be told.